Hello everyone, and welcome. This is a Bridges WoW lecture series, and we are thrilled to welcome Soya. Oh, your sign name has changed, Soya Mori, and you might explain why your sign name changed later when you begin. I won't go into depth with an introduction because he's going to tell about his history, background, and his journey. We're thrilled to have you here. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. My name is Soya Mori. I was born and raised in Japan. My first language is Japanese Sign Language, not American Sign Language. So there might be some interesting signs pop up during my presentation, but so Peter mentioned my sign name has changed. This used to be my sign name. And about 25 years ago, I was a student at the University of Rochester in the Department of Economics. And at that time, this was my sign name. That's what I grew up with. But then I began working with research. And so I would ask lots of questions, trying to find out about a variety of things. So this is where my new name sign comes from, because it means that I ask a lot of questions. And deaf people in the community that I was working with decided that they would change my name because of all the questions I asked related to my research career. So how do you do the sign again? Bridges program. They asked me to present about my experience. Not only growing up, but my academic journey and my professional work. So I will talk about that today. So there will be 4 main parts of my presentation today. I'll discuss some of my publications, show some of the articles and books that I have been involved with. I'll then talk about my academic experience, then current research, and then a conclusion at the end. I recently published several books. This one here on the right is in English. All the others are in Japanese. I typically write first in Japanese, and then it's translated into English. Now, these books are mostly focused on issues with people with disabilities, not only those who are deaf, but those who are blind or mobility challenged or other disabilities. So developing economies and how it affects those with disabilities are my focus of research now. Now there's a statistics research book up here that I was involved in. One is for work in India, and another one is from work in Southeast Asia. Prior to my work in Southeast Asia, I did some work in Southern Asia and in India, and then also in Africa. There are many people in Africa that I have studied and worked with. And then I also did some research in Southeast Asia. And I realized that there's a large number of women with disabilities, and I'm focusing on that population more so. I'm now at the University of California, Berkeley. I was there, and for a year I worked on writing a book related to women with disabilities and in impoverished communities. This July, I will finish my work there and go back to Japan and begin a new research project. I already have a team ready that will come together once I get back. And it will be a new topic related to disabilities in the Middle East. And I don't know when I'll get to other countries, but I'll be keeping work on that. Now, around the world, specifically Asia and Africa, are what I've studied. There's one area left that I haven't looked at. Do you know where? Well, no, Australia is doing very well, but South America. South America is a place that I cannot go and do much research, I feel, because of their language. I'm limited to Japanese and English. I don't know Latino languages. So I might have somebody in the future join my team for work in South America, but that is not yet happening. So this book here won an award from the Japan Society of International Development. It was the first time that these researchers had studied developing countries, and specifically people with disabilities, and how economics impacts these populations. This was the first time that a book had been written about this particular topic, and we won an award for it. And then we got a second award. I mean, it was just an amazing honor. Not only one, but 2 awards received for books that we've written. And then here, this book that has been translated into English, I will show you a little bit later, but we have been invited to present related to our work for this book that has been translated into English. Next, please. In Japan, I've been involved in a lot of translation work between English and Japanese to English. I've also worked with individuals in the Japanese deaf community. So here on the left, you can see Deaf in America. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that book. And then inside of Deaf Culture is another, no, wait just a moment. The first 2 on the left are from the United States, but then Understanding Deaf Culture, that's from the UK. This book on the far right is different. It's religious-based. And there's a professor at Gallaudet University that published or wrote this book, and then we translated it. Oh, this translation work is very intense. And this Understanding Deaf Culture, to change it to Japanese, oh my, it's a very thick book once it's been translated into Japanese. So I have been involved in the publication of many books, as you can see here, and most of them are in the Japanese language. Now, we've won awards for our Developing Economies book, but we've also won an award for a dictionary in the Koji-in. Koji-in is similar to the English dictionary Merriam-Webster. That's the name of the dictionary. So Koji-in is the name of the dictionary in Japan. And we have had Japanese Sign Language published in the book in Koji-jin. They asked us to be involved in writing that, and that was the first time that they had approached a signed language being published in the dictionary. People weren't sure how to teach deaf people or how to communicate with them, and I told them, of course, that there is language that they use and that that could be published. This recent Wednesday, I presented over at NTID. Some of you may have attended my presentation, and I talked about developing countries, their situations there, and my research experience related to that topic. Now, there are two worlds, sign linguistics and developing economies. They seem very separate and don't merge very well, but I'll explain how I've brought them together. Yeah, I was 18 or 19, graduated high school. I was young, that was a long time ago. At that time, I joined a class named Linguistic Anthropology. It was taught by a gentleman who edited the first Swahili Japanese dictionary in Japan. The first author, Masayu Nishi, taught this course, and I enjoyed it very much. I seemed to learn a lot. And I had an interpreter, a sign language interpreter, and so, of course, the professor noticed and asked me if I was deaf, which I responded I was. I told him I was interested in sign language research, and he explained that linguistics has rules. And of course, I was 18 or 19, and I had no idea about rules and linguistics and language itself. I just used the sign language to communicate. I didn't know there were any rules to it specifically. But my professor told me otherwise. He told me that language has grammar and rules, and I had no idea. But as I continued my academic journey, I realized how true that was. You might all be familiar with the Green Book. I was given that on American Sign Language, and I learned that American Sign Language has grammar. And we had Japanese Sign Language, which was our language, and I realized that it must have grammar also, and I wanted to study it and learn more about it. So, other students I invited to read the book with me, this Green Book, and learn more about it and join me on this journey of discovery about Japanese Sign Language and our grammar. I went to a linguistics institute, the Linguistic Society of America, and they're responsible for summer school or summer institutes. And they partner with the University of New Mexico. And students would go and stay for a period of time and learn a lot of information. So I attended that institute and learned quite a bit that I then took back to apply to Japanese Sign Language. Now, Japan has a Linguistic Society of Japan. Used to be only spoken languages, but they did add sign language. Now, Japan, during my time, did not have interpreting services for college education. No interpreters at colleges or universities during my time when I was in school. That meant if I wanted to learn in a mainstream environment, that I would have to try and read lips or figure my way around it. Or I could ask a friend if I could borrow their notes or classmate to help me and give me their notes. So I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to succeed in this environment, so I set up a sign language club and invited a variety of other students to join me. I taught them some sign language, and oh goodness, that was a long time ago. That meant, of course, during my time again in college, there was not professional interpreting services. If there was a presentation given, there were no interpreters provided. I would ask my friend if maybe they would help me and come and interpret for me. Or maybe I would get the information that was going to be discussed and I could read it ahead of time, or I would ask for the information for my friend to read ahead of time so they could interpret for me during the presentation. It was quite an experience. Wow, now deaf individuals learning through sign language is very powerful. There is a Japanese Sign Language Association. Most of them have been hearing. Most of those on the board or the committee have been hearing, but more deaf individuals have begun to join the club and the board. I was the first president of this organization to be deaf. So we established the Linguistic Society for Deaf Individuals and invited a variety of people to join so that we can teach. Now, we taught and researched Japanese Sign Language, but of course, again, I was a developing economics major, and I collected data about deaf people, and I decided that I wanted to do some research in the Philippines. So for 30 years, I would go over time, periodically, to the Philippines to collect data over time. And I studied the Filipino Sign Language, did research on that for many years. I also went to Africa, to Kenya. They also have their own sign language, and so I researched and wrote an article related to their language. Swahili is a spoken language, and would be translated into English. I don't know how to sign Kenyan Sign Language. I don't have the background appropriate, so I would have a hearing person come along with me, and they would be familiar with Swahili and sign language as well. They joined me on my journeys there, and we wrote an article together about our work. So when I traveled to different countries, they learned that I was deaf and that I was a researcher and I could do a variety of things. They would invite me for presentations also. So I was invited for a talk for the Linguistic Typology Conference. I then was involved in a small study group for deaf individuals that met monthly. We would come together, and it was not like a formal university course, but a monthly informal teaching opportunity. Some of you might be aware that there's only one private deaf school in Japan that uses the bye-bye language model. There's only one school that does this in Japan, all of Japan. All the other schools for the deaf are oral programs. The staff and faculty, everyone at this school for the deaf in Japan, the Masai Gakuen School for the Deaf, all the faculty and staff can sign and communicate directly with their students. And yes, I have written many articles and published, as well as the books that I've mentioned previously. These are just some examples. I have presented many times in Japan, as well as internationally. I've been invited for presentations and talks. The World Bank invited me to present for them. This is another UN group that invited me. This was a conference in Bangkok, Thailand. And then here's another presentation from the UN. And click play. This was when, yes, the UN invited me to present. This is one of my slides. I was describing statistics and how I collected data and how my research was trustworthy. So there were a variety of governmental people who are involved in the United Nations that were present at this presentation. I think this was about 4 years ago. Do you all know where the UN headquarters are? Yes, New York City, correct. And I was using ASL or signing, and so that meant I needed a voice interpreter. It was very important for deaf individuals to have a good interpreter, and often the voicing quality is somewhat low. I had my own interpreter that came along in case the interpreter that was provided was not up to par that I needed. Gallaudet did send an interpreter along with me for that purpose, and they did a wonderful job. They were a coda, did an excellent job voicing for me. But again, if you're a deaf individual and invited to present and you want to make sure that your voice is conveyed appropriately, it's very important that you have some control over that process yourself. So yes, some of this I used on Wednesday. You may have seen during my presentation on Wednesday, but you can go ahead and close this and get back to my slide. Okay, yes, so those are the top 3 icon pictures that you see that I did presentations for, and then here's a list of a variety of others. Now, some are very interesting. Sometimes I actually fly to the location. Other times I am video conferenced in. Sometimes there are smaller countries or locations that want to have me present, but they don't have the money to fly me in. And so I will just present through camera, through video conferencing remotely. Oh, and I have been to Germany as well. My parents are hearing, but I'm fortunate to have 2 siblings who are deaf. A brother, I am the boy, and then my 2 sisters are deaf. And so we had no issues communicating. We all communicated just fine together. And we were all the same, you know, we were all deaf and able to communicate. Elementary school was a little bit tough, a little frustrating going into the hearing world and learning how to navigate that. They only have deaf schools for preschool. That meant that elementary school and on, I was mainstreamed. So I was the first child born to my parents, a boy, and then their second and third child were born deaf also. So I went to the deaf preschool, but all the other deaf schools are oral programs, and we wanted a native school for the deaf in Japan that I could attend. But my parents learned that they were very strong oral training, and there were windows all around, and they would be closed, and you cannot look anywhere else but the teacher. My mom saw the school, and felt like I wasn't getting the proper education or training that I needed. She did not want me to just get some type of vocational training. She wanted me to actually get a good education. So she took me out of school and took me and homeschooled me, beginning in elementary. Now, there is a Japanese law that you're required to go to school. So my mom established a class for deaf and hard of hearing students to include myself and my siblings. There was a local school that established a self-contained classroom for deaf and hard of hearing students that I began to go to. For 6 years, I went to that. And then in junior high school, I was completely mainstreamed. That meant there was no longer a self-contained classroom for myself and other deaf and hard of hearing students. I was surrounded by only hearing people. But there were 40 of us deaf and hard of hearing students, so we still were able to interact together. Oh, I have many stories from that time as I was growing up, but that's for another time. And then I went to university. I got my bachelor's and my master's in economics in Japan. I began doing research work in 1988. I then came at the University of Rochester for 2 years in 1992 and stayed until 1994. And I did some coursework there, but more so research. I was limited to 2 years at the University of Rochester and went back to Japan after that. So in 1988 is when I formally began doing research work. And then about 15 years till about 2000, my research was not on those with disabilities. It was more general economics and industrial organizations. Such as, cars, automobiles, electricity, home repair, etc., in developing countries. But how do you develop these things? Suppose you're trying to build a car and you need to make it for a certain amount of money because you have a budget that you have to follow. You might send it off to another country to be developed or made or manufactured and then brought back to your country or location. So I did research related to that and how different countries would work on their developing economies. Again, I'm deaf, and I wasn't doing any research related to those who are deaf, and it felt a bit interesting for me, and I thought I'm going to reach retirement at some point, and I want to feel like I'm connected to my work. And Monday through Friday, doing research, I would do interviews with hearing people, maybe write back and forth, maybe have an interpreter, travel to various places, and that's fine. But on Saturday and Sunday, things were closed because the government in Japan typically has a standard, I guess you could say, that things were closed on the weekends. And then other countries too. So now I went to the Philippines and I wasn't connected to the deaf community, even on the weekends. So I started asking deaf individuals their experiences, and they told me their stories. And I realized that I was lucky to have the work that I had. But many of those deaf individuals didn't have work longer than 6 months at a time, and I didn't understand why that was. So I decided to transition to a new topic of those with disabilities and developing economies and merged my two interests. So Southeast Asia, Southern Asia, Africa are 3 areas that I studied, and then I'm continuing to do so now. Now, there's a lot of social work research and case study research, and we see that things aren't great for a variety of populations. But what does that mean? How do we change policies to improve lives? People do research and find that it is factual that people are disadvantaged, but what do we do about it? And yes, there are people living in poverty, but what do we do about it? We need numbers to make change in policy. People need facts and evidence to see that something needs to happen. So, as I mentioned, I seemingly worked in 2 different worlds sign linguistics and economies. So, this is a bit of how I've merged the 2. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the linguistics world, but RS, referential shift. In sign language, you can use the index finger to point to myself, but it could mean someone else. Or I could take on the role of someone else. So, how do we analyze that information? Now, American Sign Language has spread throughout the world. Does that mean that the world will adopt ASL as their signed language? No, that's not the case. Now, in the Philippines, their sign language has been influenced by ASL, but it's not taken over completely. Yes, ASL is influential and can cause some changes in native languages, but I don't believe it will take over completely. Asia has sign language groups. Like Korea has their own sign language. Other countries in Asia, like Malaysia, the Philippines, etc., they may even have separate groups within their country and not just one language, and they might influence each other. I'm curious about how that happens. That's something that I'm looking into now. Now, development economics issues. Again, I've mentioned disability, and I may do this after I retire also. I'm trying to get to this point to study and research this, but I've been focusing on women with disabilities, as well as children. Now, this children with disabilities, it seems to be related somehow to education, but also it's influenced by their family and their economic situation. I want to see how family and economic situations can influence disabilities and vice versa. And so, of course, I'll use statistics. And then, how are all of these related to poverty? How do all of these things connect? And that's what I'm researching currently. So, for my conclusion, I guess this is some of my philosophy for new researchers, for some of you who are up and coming in the research world. Research work is not easy. You will face a variety of challenges. But to find your passion and to find the truth has amazing benefits. And now I've been doing research work for 30 years now and still enjoy it. And development economics and sign linguistics. How did that come together? Well, I was the pioneer for this work and the merging of the two. No one has ever studied those two things together. So I've become the forerunner for this. And if I face barriers, for example, all hearing researchers that I run into, and I'm the only deaf one, well, sometimes you have to break some barriers along your way. And that ties into interpreting services. Interpreting services are vital. There may be some deaf individuals who can speak for themselves, some don't. Now, if they speak for themselves, that might mean that the doors open more readily for them, but maybe not. Often, one-on-one interactions can be done maybe without an interpreter, but if it's a large presentation or a large audience or a large group, an interpreter is likely necessary. And the interpreter can gather all that information, convey it to the deaf person, for the deaf person to be able to understand and learn. Also, as a deaf person, you have to learn how to work with the interpreter and through the interpreter to be a part of the conversations. Now, this means you need money. Interpreters don't work for free. And you'll have to search for funds to be able to provide good interpreting services. Suppose you're invited to present at a conference and you thank them for that invitation, but often you have to look for the money, or I do, to look for the money to pay for an interpreter. Because if I leave it up to them to provide, they might try and be frugal and bring in an interpreter that's not highly qualified. It's very important to have sufficient funds to cover interpreters so you can get quality services, especially for a presentation. I'm responsible for making myself productive and successful, and part of that is working with interpreters and getting them involved. So I think that's it. It's about 45 minutes. We've got 15 minutes left for question and answers. Thank you so much.